Hi, my name is Justin Danhof, D-A-N-H-O-F. I'm General Counsel with the National Center for Public Policy Research. Mr. Frazier, I want to ask about your decision to leave President Trump's American Manufacturing Council. As you just talked about the outline, I think you could have had a stronger input had you been around still. But last summer, after an episode of civil unrest in Charlottesville, Virginia, you joined with other CEOs in quitting President Trump's advisory council. Liberal activist groups had, of course, been pressuring the entire council to quit from its very inception, and this incident provided you just the opportunity to virtue signal to that crowd. While there were vile racial elements at play, and there's zero defense for any of that, many of the folks protesting simply didn't want to see parts of history, such as monuments, literally toppled. And there's real cause for concern. Liberal leaders, including Nancy Pelosi, Al Sharpton, and others, have called for the destruction of not just Confederate monuments, but recently the Jefferson Memorial, Mount Rushmore, and a Chicago park named for George Washington. This is just to name a few. Totalitarians like Pelosi and her historical predecessors have a strong predilection for trying to erase history. We should resist that. You also took shots at President Trump's environmental and immigration policies. You told the New York Times, quote, "There were things that happened earlier in this administration that I didn't necessarily agree with about immigration and climate change, but I didn't think that it was my role to actually speak on these issues." Well, you did speak out. And as with Charlottesville, these issues aren't core to Merck and what we've talked about at today's meeting. They're not core to us investors or us stakeholders. The Harvard Business Review now ranks you as one of America's activist CEOs, along the lines with leftists such as Apple's Tim Cook and Starbucks' Howard Schultz. Your personal politics are just that, your personal politics. But when you speak as the head of Merck, you're representing thousands of people and opinions, those of the board, the employees, the investors, and probably more importantly, the brand. Surely many of those folks agree with the president's stance on immigration and his environmental actions, such as withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord. Many of them would prefer to see historical monuments stand and serve as lessons rather than be toppled. My question is this: what did Merck's long-term investors gain from your virtue signaling to the liberal crowd on these issues?
Well, first of all, thank you for your questions. I think you're raising some very substantial issues, and I want to tell you at the outset, the decision that I made to step down, which was supported by this board, was something that I did after giving it much thought. We live, unfortunately, in a society where it's very difficult for us to have what I would call nuanced conversations about difficult issues that we disagree with. So let me start by saying that without regard to where one stands on the political spectrum individually, any step that a CEO like me takes is going to be criticized by some people. When I joined the President's Council, I saw harsh criticism from a number of elements saying that that was a political statement in support of the president. I disagree. We were in the room to have our voice heard. And that was the reason why I joined. I didn't join it because that was a reflection of my personal politics. I joined it because I thought it was consistent with my responsibilities. And when I stepped off the council, I did not think that that was a reflection of my personal partisan political views. I feel very strongly about the issues that occurred in Charlottesville. And as an American, as a citizen, I feel I have the right to express my conscience. And I did so under those circumstances. By the way, on the nuanced conversation, I wholeheartedly agree that, we should be able to discuss issues like the monuments. My concern, however, were with some of the sentiments that were being expressed and the violence that occurred there. People can agree that a statue of Robert E. Lee should or should not stand. I hope that we as Americans don't subscribe to some of the sentiments. And as it relates to history, I would just point out to you that many people, including many proud sons and daughters of the South, perished on the battlefields of Europe because they were opposed to what those swastikas represent. So that would be my answer. Thank you.